think we're live. Sorry for that. Testing. I know we're live. Okay, so we tried this once. The space-time continuum ripped apart. We're going to try this once more. Okay, let's get to the shot. All right, and I'm going to have the headphones on from jump because I don't want what happened. Had a real weird audio feedback situation, so I'm a little kerfluffled as I adjust the mic live. Who cares, right? I'm going to edit this when I record it. Let's get into the intro. Vigilante Williamson here with the second episode of my show, The Vigilante Williamson Show. It is September 27th, 2020. Sunday, September 27th, 2020. I hope you're having a blessed Sunday. It's around 4 p.m. Tried this about half an hour ago. Had Inception. For some odd reason, there was an audio feedback issue, and so that ruined the initial recording of this podcast and the initial live broadcast. So I'm just starting from scratch. So I hope everyone's having a blessed evening, or a blessed afternoon, I should say. We're going to get into some news. The meat and potatoes of this podcast will be about the Breonna Taylor situation. A lot of the misconceptions I've seen people from the left outright lie. I've seen people from the right outright lie just to fit their narrative. This is a very nuanced situation, and there's a lot of complex things going on as far as complex emotions, as far as who's culpable for the situation. But I want to, start off with some news. It's going to be a little somber, and then we're going to end with some palate cleanser news, making fun of Hollywood, which we'll do a little bit right after this. But unfortunately, the great Gale Sayers died this week on Wednesday. I'll take off the headphones for now because they're a bit constrictive. And just pray that the world is not ending as far as this audio situation. Hopefully I got it situated. If you're here, if you're watching and you have a weird audio situation, please let me know in the chat. Because, that was very, very creepy and very weird. But I digress. Gale Sayers unfortunately died this week. The elusive running back was 77. Though his career was cut short by injuries, he was regarded as one of the NFL's greatest players. The movie Brian's Song spread his name beyond the sports world. Gale Sayers, the Will-O-Wisp running back, Will-O-the-Wisp running back, who in a short but brilliant career with the Chicago Bears left opponents, as they used to say, clutching at the air, died on Wednesday at his home in Waukesha. Sure I mispronounced that. I apologize. Indiana. He was 77. He died, unfortunately, from complications with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, which is very also sad. Very sad as well. Yes, I'm going to continue with Vigilante. Sorry, New York Times is giving me some crap. Very sad. They talk about that one. I think this is his first season where he got 2,272 all-purpose yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 of them in one game. It's one of the best athletic years in sports history, honestly. For 1 year, I think it was only 12 games that season. So he was one of the most incredible players of all time. He had a short career, but it was incredible while it lasted. And he unfortunately passed this week. I know it's very easy to be upset at sports at this point in time, and I understand that. My namesake Williamson, that comes from Corliss Williamson, which is an athlete who played for the good old Pistons back in the day. So it's very easy with the way sports have become so political, especially the one-sided political nature. I think that's the most worrying part, where you can only have one political opinion. But it's very easy to forget the impact that sports had on us and has on us. And Gale Sayers is from, a totally different era of athlete. And it's easy to forget, why we like sports in the first place. And Gale Sayers kind of represents that. And it's sad that he passed this week. So let's make fun of celebrities after that something so somber. Cardi B and her sister were sued for defamation over racist MAGA supporters jab. Cardi B and her sister are getting sued after labeling a group of beachgoers as racist MAGA supporters, according to this lawsuit. Peter Caliendo, Pauline Caliendo, Manuel Alarcon are suing the rapper and her sister, Hennessy Carolina, which I don't think that's her birth name, and her girlfriend Michelle Diaz claiming they defamed them, labeling them as racist during a squabble at the Hamptons earlier this week. Goodness gracious, just butchering the English language. In docs obtained by TMZ, the plaintiff claimed they were enjoying their time at Smith Point Beach with their families when Hennessy approached them with rage, spitting and insulting them and threatening them just because one of them was wearing a MAGA hat. At the time, Cardi tweeted a video of the altercation saying her sister was getting harassed because her and her friend are an Afro-Hispanic gay couple. The group also claims Cardi B, Hennessy, and Michelle edited the video and posted it on social media to falsely paint them as racist. Cardi B had posted the video later that day with audio apparently showing Hennessy explaining that someone in the group told her to go back to her country. Hennessy's side of the story is that they were targeted because they saw us parking here and we were speaking Spanish and were mixed. So yeah, looks like if that video was edited, that she is going to be paying up. So that's pretty funny because see a lot of people hide behind the identity politics, but from there we see disputed and false information, which I think is the theme of this show, unfortunately. At some point right after these stories, I'm going to take a quick break just to check the audio because I really do have to check the audio to make sure we're not having, it bothers me so much, and I apologize because I actually think this is unprofessional. But because I had the issue just a second ago with the audio, I really have to check. So let's take a quick break just to check. Yeah. Okay. We only have one channel of audio. So for those who are just joining us, I basically had an audio inception when I tried to stream it the first time, and I didn't realize it until I put the headphones on to play a video, and it kind of rattled me. But hey, that's what you do. It's the second episode of the show. The first episode I messed up. The second episode I messed up. That's how you get better. Let's go on to the next story. Now I'm confirmed to not be in Vigilanteception and talk about Trump derangement system being an international thing. Pascal Ferrier, White House ricin package suspect in court. A Canadian woman, our neighbors to the north, who portrayed themselves as friendly, but being a Detroiter, I know better, has been charged in U.S. federal court for allegedly posting a letter with deadly ricin poison to President Donald Trump. Pascal Ferrier of Quebec was arrested at a border crossing in Buffalo, New York on Sunday. Officials say she was carrying a gun. She has pleaded not guilty to making threats against the president. The letter she allegedly sent last week was discovered before it reached the White House. In it, she called on Mr. Trump to drop out of the presidential race. The envelope contained ricin, a poison found naturally in castor beans. I could go on, but it's just kind of weird. This woman is pretty deranged. She hated Trump so much. I guess she has relatives in the U.S., and she doesn't want them to have this president for another 4 years. So, yeah, really bad Trump derangement system. So, let's get into this Breonna Taylor situation. Here we go, as the Joker would say. Now, this may be an odd picture to start off with, but I think this picture is very important. So, I'm going to get into this Breonna Taylor situation. I'm going to talk about all the reporting, all the above-ground media reports we have of this situation, which according to them, this man has actually been slandered. I hear a lot of people calling him a drug dealer. Her drug dealer boyfriend shot the police. That's not what happened. That's no more accurate than the fact that he shot first. Those are both, if you're on the right, you ignore the fact that he's not a drug dealer and his shots were probably self-defense as well. If you're on the left, you ignore the fact that he shot first at the police, and that's what caused him to shoot back. So people ignore what they ignore, but I'm starting with this picture of Kenneth Walker, and I can go to another picture, and you may see a little similarity with his hands. If you don't know, you may be asking, well, why is he talking about this picture? What does this have to do with the situation? Who cares about it? That's just how he takes pictures. He just grabs his hands like that. But if you know, when you see somebody grabbing their hands, you know what this stuff means to certain groups of people, to certain organizations, we'll say. So when you're getting into a story that has this much disputed information and this much misinformation being put out there, it's hard not to at least acknowledge this angle. There are people who are on this platform and others who will break things down on a deeper level as far as what I'm talking about, as far as the hand gestures and the setting, even the background there as far as the greenery goes. But I will digress on that. And again, that's not what this channel is for. This is not a tinfoil hat channel. Some of you probably don't even understand what I'm referencing. But I digress. Let's get into this Breonna Taylor situation. Unfortunately, the protests have led to police being shot, and there's a lot of dispute. I need to go through the timeline of the story that I got, because the story has changed so much as far as the mainstream reporting. Initially, I heard the story that it was the wrong house and they shot the wrong person and all this other stuff. And some of that is because of Kenneth Walker. He didn't know why he was he didn't even know why this situation was happening. And then I heard, oh no, her boyfriend was a drug dealer and he shot police first, and that was potentially a trap house. And then that colored my thinking. You say, well, you put yourself in a bad situation. And then come to find out, no, that was her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, who was a drug dealer, who the last meeting that the police have on record was a couple months before. And in 2020, I'm not sure if you know how these females move, but 2 months is more than enough time for a woman to move on. And that she had moved on with someone else, and that guy's a legal gun owner. And even though the banging of this warrant was confirmed, whether or not they identified themselves as not, and that being disputable means that he may have had justifiable reason to shoot, not knowing whether or not that was police banging through the door. And as we'll get to later, and this is showing other no-knock warrant situations, because I think the no-knock warrant can still be eliminated. I think there's no need to have it. To me, it seems very unconstitutional. And if they would have identified themselves police clearly, I think this situation may have gone differently. If they would have served the warrant at a different time, even though they were serving multiple warrants, I think the situation is different. Would have gone different. This is a different situation. This is not Breonna Taylor. This is Duncan Lemp, I believe. Yes, Duncan Lemp. And this situation, unless you follow Tim Pool, you wouldn't know about the situation. A Maryland man was shot and killed by a police officer, was asleep in his bedroom when the police opened fire from outside his home. An attorney for the 21-year-old man's family said on Friday the girlfriend, who was pregnant, was also wounded. The Montgomery County Police Department, this is in Maryland, said in the news release, Duncan Socrates Lemp confronted police and was shot by the officers early on Thursday. I can't remember what the article was more than 6 months old. So this was earlier in the year. So they don't have to, I had to look around for the date. But Renee Sandler said, an attorney for Lemp's relatives, said an eyewitness gave a completely contrary account of the shooting. She said police had absolutely no justification for the shooting Lemp based on the circumstances. And Duncan Lemp is a Caucasian man. This story you've never probably heard of, right? But it's a no-knock story. Let me see. They were serving a high-risk search warrant because he had a lot of guns. That was the whole reason they got this no-knock warrant. It was actually one of the laws meant to prevent school shootings. You can, because Maryland, which is the state this happened in, has no-knock warrants, and I forgot what they call them, these red whatever laws, where if you think someone has a gun, you can say, hey, this person has a gun, this person may be a shooter. And so somebody put that out there, and unfortunately, this is a long story, this Duncan Lemp situation. Unfortunately, it led to people busting to what happened, to the cops shooting him, because he was a high-risk warrant and they had no-knock jurisdiction, and it led to a man getting shot. And because he was a Caucasian man, unfortunately, the story didn't blow up, which is crazy to say in this day and age, right? You're an old person, you're old enough like me, I'm in my mid-30s, so it's like, wow, I can't believe we live in a day and age where if an act of violence happens to someone who's Caucasian, the story is suppressed. And if an act of violence happens to someone who's black, the story is manipulated. And That's very sad. But this is just more evidence that the no knock warrant, it just causes issues. And this was a situation, wasn't a no knock situation, but Ryan Whitaker, this happened in May. He was playing Crash Bandicoot. It's 10 p.m. Somebody's knocking on his door. He doesn't know it's police. He comes to the door with his gun. When he sees it's police, he goes to turn around. He ends up shot. And he's dead. So I say this to say, I know a lot of people support police. I am not a BLM guy. In fact, I think so many people spend so much time arguing against the BLM straw man, the defund the police, all the craziness they talk, that you forget the nuance and the idea that there is some need for police reform. Because and media reform, a lot of you may not even know these stories, right? And these are two Caucasian men who lost their lives at the hand of the state. A lot of you people, are you on the right or not? Do y'all want martial law? You know what I mean? Do y'all want the state to be able to burst through your door and then you're out there justifying why the state is killing citizens? Are you kidding me? Like, what's wrong with you people? You know what I mean? You're out there. I literally saw a guy, I may have referred to it earlier, but I literally saw a guy I really respect on a major platform on this platform. A major channel has grown on this platform. Say, you guys don't have your facts right. Her drug dealer boyfriend shot at the police. Even though that is entirely inaccurate, because her boyfriend who shot at the police was a registered gun owner. Let me see. I got a bunch of tabs open. Let me go to... There's one that lines out everything. And this is the unfortunate incident. It was Wednesday when the charges were released. Nobody was brought for charges for Breonna Taylor's death, just the wanton shooting. And, before I get into all these tabs, this is what I was looking for, this minute-by-minute breakdown. This is December 30th. They execute search warrants, arrest Jamarcus Glover, who is Taylor's ex-boyfriend. Let me actually go. January 16th is Glover leaving Taylor's Springfield Drive, 3003 Springfield Drive apartment, which, as we'll hear later, that's the apartment that she ended up dying in. This is the last time they saw Glover in her apartment, at least that I can see, was January 16th. So now we have March 12th. We have the warrant set in motion. This is them getting the warrants. 9 p.m., Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, get home from Texas Roadhouse, giving her friends' kids a ride across town, whatever. She had just worked 4 consecutive shifts at an ER as an ER technician. Then police are briefed on the entry plan. So just before midnight, they coached the situation. They didn't realize there was other people in the house. Is this part talking about the fact that he's a registered gun owner? The kid with this hand symbol. Hard not to see it, man. It's hard not to see it. It's hard to talk about this story. And he keeps doing the same. This is 3 different pictures. I'm not a tinfoil hat. If you could give me a reason for this man doing the same thing in 3 different pictures, I'm going to go back to the above ground reporting. But good Lord. That's why there's so much disputed stuff. Let me hydrate before I die. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Goodness. Okay. Call from, he said that. So let me go back to the story. Where was I? It was met with, 12:40. Officers were in place outside and began to knock on the door. Automatically said they began to knock and identified themselves as police officers. That is in dispute, even though this is in dispute. Let's get into, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to get a real picture for this. I'm going to finish this account and I'll get into their verbal accounts. So after a minute of hearing no response, police use a battering ram. Inside, Kenneth Walker grabbed his gun. Both he and Taylor pulled on clothes and went to the door. They left their bedroom and had it made it down the hallway before the door comes off its hinges. So other neighbors are calling 911 to report gunshots. Walker says he shoots one shot as a warning aimed at the ground, still unable to see and unclear to see who was at the door. So he just says he shoots a warning shot at the ground. I don't know if that's the case because we know Mattingly, who was one of the officers, got hit. So, but maybe depending on who he was aimed at, I'm not sure how good his aim is. That's just what happened. So he's noted to shoot one warning shot. After a bunch of shots are fired a few minutes later, Walker calls 911 and says somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend, not the police, because according to what he could see, he's late at night, whatever, he didn't see who kicked in the door and shot. He just shot a warning shot because from what he got, there was a battering ram, people knocking at the door, not identifying themselves. In fact, let's go into his story. This is what Kenneth Walker's account is. Again, not a drug dealer, not Jamarcus Glover, a legal gun owner who, as far as I can tell, shot in self-defense just as much as the police shot in self-defense.
Say police.
She's yelling at the top of her lungs, and I am too at this point. Who is it? No answer, no response, no anything.
The gunfire.
So remember, he's saying they're yelling while the door's being knocked. Who is it? No response. And there's another.
I'm laying in bed. It's a loud knock at the door.
The detectives say they knocked on the door multiple times.
I knocked on the door, banged on it. We didn't announce the first couple because our intent was not to.
So remember that. He said that he did not announce the first couple. Now, so that kind of lines up with the idea that they were asking who is it and not getting an answer. Now, he does change his story a little bit right after.
To hit the door. Our intent was to give her plenty of time to come to the door because they said she was probably there alone.
But Taylor wasn't there alone. According to her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, he and Taylor were in bed watching a movie when they heard the knocks.
So it's a loud bang at the door. She pops up out of her sleep. It scared her to death. Me too. Like, who is that?
Walker says they jumped out of bed, started getting dressed, and he grabbed his gun. At the same time, detectives took a battering ram against the door.
The door comes off the hinges. So I just let off one shot. I still can't see who it is or anything.
So
but Detective Mattingly says he saw them.
I'm face on about probably 20 feet away. Right.
Okay. So I thought I had it where.
Began when officers busted down the door. Walker says he fired a shot because he believed.
So I thought I had it. But basically, he disputed whether or not he knew it was the police banging on the door. We know that they got into it with a neighbor, but Kenneth Walker, from what he knew, just knew somebody was trying to bang through the door and started to cut off the hinges. He let off a shot. That's why the charges, as I showed on one of these tabs, charges against Kenneth Walker got dropped. This is not it. This is him and his signs and symbols. But the charges against Kenneth Walker got dropped. And let me see if this in the interview.
Right down the hallway. There's a better.
This team
and then come
is
back
not
out
the
with
team
a package.
that was involved with
Police
the
say Glover
investigation
then
of
got
Jamarcus
into his
Glover,
car
which is the
and
whole
drove to the
reason
Muhammad Ali
this
address, which the detective called a known drug
situation's
house.
happening.
The warrant goes on to say that a U.S. postal inspector verified that Glover had been receiving packages at Taylor's apartment, and that it is not uncommon for drug traffickers to receive mail packages at different locations to avoid detection from law enforcement. Detectives also wrote they believe Glover may be keeping narcotics or proceeds from the sale of narcotics inside Taylor's apartment for safekeeping. On the night of March 12th, Detective John Mattingly and several others were briefed on the plan. Mattingly says he drove by Taylor's apartment around 11:45 to scope it out, and then around 12:30 on the morning of March 13th, officers parked in front of Breonna Taylor's building and walked up to her door.
When SWAT was doing their thing down at 2-4 in Madison, we went over, or Elliott, whatever it was. We executed ours at the same time.
About 10 miles away, officers executed a warrant at a different property on Elliott Avenue. There, police found their main suspect, Glover, and arrested him.
So
around 12:40, officers began to bang on Taylor's door, setting into motion the events that eventually led to her death.
So he must have had a decent-sized operation. I kind of just wanted to show there's a dispute on whether or not Kenneth Walker knew that they were police when he fired a shot. And because it's a no-knock warrant, They did knock. That much is definite. Both he heard the banging, Kenneth Walker. There was a neighbor who also heard the banging. So we know they knocked. Whether or not they identified themselves as police, we just saw later, as I showed, I can go into a show again, Mattingly admitted that the first few knocks they didn't identify. As I dropped my mouse, which is going to be handy for a live stream where I got to go through all these damn tabs. Yes. Live YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, live YouTube. So, here's what we know. Jamarcus Glover is not Kenneth Walker. So stop calling him a dirtbag drug dealer who shot at the police. He's not. He's a legal gun owner who's also suing Louisville, by the way. He's suing the city of Louisville. This is DA, all the people involved. I have so many tabs, and I probably should have did a little bit more tab foo before, because I want to get into it. Basically, he's suing the city of Louisville. Let's get some of these tabs gone. Let's make our lives a little easier, right? He's suing the city of Louisville for potential exoneration. Is this it? No, this is. I'll get to that later. Because basically, the charges were dropped. I think this has the article from Sun. So it's hard to read through the mask. So yeah, additional investigation is necessary. So that's why the charges were dropped. So he's going to be suing for immunity because he believes he did nothing wrong. To be fair, if we're to believe the above ground report, which I know, like I said, is something that we should dispute, but Kenneth Walker shot a shot that by all means was self-defense. Just as self-defense as the shots that the police returned. Even though we're disputing whether or not they identified themselves as police, quite frankly, because the nature of no-knock warrants is actually a moot point. They had no need to identify themselves as police. They had no need to even knock on the door. So they could have just battered in. As a result of that, though, if you are going to batter in someone's home at midnight, Kenneth Walker was not a suspect. He was not even thought to be there. So his shot was legally fired. That's why I have a very mixed view. I don't necessarily believe that the police themselves, even though I don't like the laws, I don't necessarily know, outside of the one police who was charged for shooting into the apartment, I don't necessarily know they behaved illegally based upon the nature of no-knock warrants. But I don't think that Kenneth Walker did either, which means that it may have been the case that the Louisville courts have this exactly right for awarding Breonna Taylor and her family a judgment. I'm not sure about the amount. That's a very high amount, but because you can make the argument that the police department, the Louisville Police Department, are culpable in her death, even if the individual police officers were only defending themselves from a situation they put themselves into, by the way. They didn't do enough reconnaissance to know who was in the house. They didn't know that she had moved on. And if they had done enough research to know, okay, she's dating someone who's a legal gun owner, we should account for that, maybe make sure he's not there. And also keep in account that, she had worked 4 different shifts beforehand where she would have not been in her home. Yeah, I know they did the simultaneous warrant thing, but they could have potentially served this warrant at a different time. I also saw reports, I don't have those tabs up, I got enough tabs, that she had a little past with, she had been dating this guy off and on for 7 years. Not Kenneth Walker, but Jamarcus Glover. She had been dating a man for 7 years. Let me see if I can get to the people at the center of the case. Her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, he was the focus of the Louisville narcotics investigation that they were plainclothes officers, by the way. That's another thing to keep in mind. Plainclothes officers to execute a warrant at Taylor's home. He previously dated Taylor on and off for 7 years, Walker told investigators. So Walker knew who her ex-boyfriend was. So you can imagine what his motivation was when somebody's banging at the door at midnight, knowing that he's dating a dope dealer's ex. So his motivation, even if they were saying police, you think he believed them? I'm not saying he should have made that decision. But I'm saying his motivation, he knew what he was doing with who he was dating and who he was messing with and what implication that could have been. So he had a nervousness to him, I'm sure, which is why he had his gun there in the first place, which is why this is just a Tarantino scene. The Breonna Taylor situation is a Tarantino scene gone wrong. A Tarantino scene come to life. A complete comedy of errors, because everyone in the Blaze did an excellent video on it. Everyone involved has a different perspective. I think Walker is going to justifiably win his lawsuit. I'm sorry if you're on the right and that bothers you. Just like I'm sorry if you're on the left. I don't necessarily know if the police officers who actually served this warrant did anything illegal to the laws that we currently have. Meaning, I don't necessarily think, unfortunately, charges should have been brought. I think the police had that right, just like I thought, or not the police, I think the courts had that right, just like I think the courts had a right to award a wrongful death. Because the police department, the captains, the practices that we have, that caused her death. And I know the BLM strawman that come up, the abolish the police, that's BS, but reform is necessary. The fact is, she dated a drug dealer. The consequences for being an accessory to a drug dealer is not being shot to death. She deserved. And she wasn't dating him at the time, and he was not the one who shot the police. A legal gun owner shot the police. One who was taking those risks because he knew who she was dating. And that's probably what his motivation was for firing the shots. His motivation was for being nervous. So a lot of people made a lot of bad decisions, including the police. I know you may be on the right. It's okay to back the police. It's okay to support your police, want police around to say, you know what, there's some reform. If we had a different policing situation, maybe this situation doesn't happen. And I've also addressed the idea that if you know about how the situation may really have come about. But everyone seems to have a misconception. The series of events are simple. Breonna Taylor dated Jamarcus Glover, who had a decent-sized drug operation going, of which they thought Breonna Taylor's apartment was a part of. They did not do enough reconnaissance to know that she was with someone else at the time. And as a result, their decisions not only got her killed, but potentially could have got a police officer killed. A police officer killed justifiably by self-defense, because Kenneth Walker's right to defend himself is just as valid as the police officers, especially because Kentucky is a stand-your-ground state. So unfortunately, there is no winning, just losing in different ways. Regardless of what narrative, what spun narrative that you're running with, because it is all spin, as I've shown by all these pictures Mr. Walker keeps taking with the same symbols or same gestures. But regardless of what you think, civility is needed. And you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Can't just have a half-cocked idea. Can't tell people the misinformation they have while not being informed yourself. And that was a really ironic thing to see somebody say, you people don't know what you're talking about, and then slander Kenneth Walker. Literally slander him. So we'll see what plays out with that. I hope my analysis with all this, I hope it made sense. Because I was trying to jump through tabs and there's a lot of other stuff going on. We're going to cut all out of these tabs. There's a lot of stuff going on with these pictures of Kenneth Walker, and I'm just not equipped. I'm not well equipped enough to go into them, but I'm sure people are. I'm sure they're being suppressed. So let's get out of this. Let's palate cleanse from this situation. This is what I was talking about. Him suing the police department. He was initially charged with attempted murder, but that charge has been dropped. However, it could still be refiled, leading to the immunity request and Walker's lawsuit. A lawsuit I believe he'll win, unfortunately. I believe we will get police reform from this situation because we have to. I showed the situations of Ryan Whitaker and Duncan Limp. They were Caucasian men who were shot by the police. Their story was not reported. Unfortunately, the underreporting of this makes you think that the police, the militarization of our police, is a racial issue. Unfortunately, the poor and who usually include black and brown end up the most affected by it. But we see this as affecting people, all Americans, and unfortunately, with the riots, we're going to lead to more militarized police. So we need to demilitarize our police for black citizens, white citizens, all Americans, right? Because the media has its own narrative, and because we have so many people who respond to that narrative and respond to those straw men, we can't find a nuance to say, hey, we could demilitarize our police. If they would have served, if they would have not been plainclothes, if they would have gone out of their way to identify themselves as police, how different would the situation have played out? It's disputable whether or not they identified themselves. It's obvious that they knocked and banged on the door, used a battering ram and all that, but whether or not they displayed themselves as police, Mattingly initially said they initially did not. And then went on to say that they did later on in the interview. It's a lot of stuff going on. But that is it on that situation. Let's talk about a sicko making a terrible TV show. And yes, I'm calling, if I can get these damn tabs, internet, thank you. James Gunn, and, well, not John Cena, he's not, well, I don't know if he's a sicko, but James Gunn. I know a lot of people just give him a pass because I am Groot. But he said some stuff that made you think that he may be a fan of cuties. Either way, James Gunn and John Cena announced Suicide Squad spinoff Peacemaker will delve into current world issues. So DC strikes again. I did a story about DC kind of doing a little wokeness with Batwoman and Hawkman, even though, as somebody in the comments of that video said, if you go back to the ancient Kemet, yeah, I get that. I get that angle for Hawkman. But I digress. Suicide Squad spinoff is going to delve into current world issues. Does anybody want to see this show? Does anybody want to see another show delve into current world issues? Especially in a heavy-handed, single narrative, non-nuanced way that most of these shows deal with. We have more shows. Oh, no, I want to talk about this. But before I get to that, I'll get to some of this other wokeness. No, let me get to each story myself. John Cena, Peacemaker. It'll be an origin story. HBO Max detailed this series will explore the origins of the Peacemaker. Great, another origin story. The master of weapons from the highly anticipated The Suicide Squad film in the new HBO Max original action adventure comedy series Peacemaker. So they're doing a lot of HBO Max stuff with the DC universe. Now, I don't know if that world issues tagline is just BS. Sometimes I wonder, is there a woke quotient? And so these people have to toss in woke stuff as a way of signaling, like, hey, we do some wokeness, and maybe it'll be more in line with the boys. We're making fun of stuff. Sorry about that. Gotta adjust. Ugh. Wearing a mask on stream is tough. Hopefully I don't just reveal my identity. Alrighty. But this is not something I want to see. Let's get into more of these stories. CBC News quietly edits article about car break and that a police activist said it was white supremacy. This is in Canada. Somebody, this victimization, it's hot in the streets to be for some white supremacy to happen. So, CBC News edited out language from a story about an anti-police activist's car getting broken into that she spun to an act of white supremacy. The activist did not report the crime to the police. Of course not. For hashtag defund CBC fans, this is gold. Anti-police activist had her car broken into on no evidence. She claims a white supremacist conspiracy, and at CBC News breathlessly reports this as fact. But there's actually another story here which CBC missed. Cian Wilson, Nation of the African Caribbean Black Network of Waterloo Region, believes the car break was intimidation intended to discourage her advocacy work. Professor at the Wilfrid Laurier University attributes, of course they're professors. There's always someone in academia. There's always some latte liberal in academia, rather than black or white, who's oppressed by the man. Golly. No corroborating evidence was submitted to law enforcement because she felt that racialized communities do not always feel safe reporting incidents to the police. Okay. Then this is her report. Let me see. So with CB, okay, here's the weird stuff. She posted that tweet about her experience, saying it was, she deleted her Twitter account, by the way. She posted that tweet. I just kind of showed. I'll show it again. This tweet. Using the term BIPOC. All these new terms. I'm black, man. I'm black. I'm sick of all this stupid ass term. I'm not a person of color. I don't feel a need to differentiate all non-whites in one group. It's silly. This weird victimization, self-hating thing. There's a lot of people who hate themselves based upon their race. A lot of black people, white people, people all over the world. And it's very sad. You should love yourself regardless of what you are. And a lot of this leftist stuff just leads into that. But after posting the account on social media from her since deleted Twitter account, Wilson claimed that other vocal minorities leaders share similar experiences. Some reportedly mentioned stalking, including strangers watching, following, loitering around their homes. But when CBC News reached out to several of these sources, they declined to comment on the record, citing concerns about their personal safety and the safety of their families, which is pretty strange. To say they were worried about their safety, or they're worried about their safety from supremacists, or they're worried about their safety from this organization if they give a story that's counter to that. This is a bunch of privilege crap. So yeah, this is an update. What's the update? So white settler. So this is just this anti-white, but who probably has a white boyfriend, because that's what they are. They're anti-white, but they love white people. They love white people. It's a bunch of white people who hate themselves, and a bunch of black people who hate themselves, make up a lot of this extreme left, extreme racialized left. And they usually love the other race and this inordinate, like, racial ethno fetish. I may sound like I'm talking out my ass, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who's noticed this, where you see this really left progressive person, and they'll say a lot of stuff, but it's usually loathing towards their own race and then ethno fetishizing another, and it's very disturbing. But let's get into more wokeness. And this is kind of disappointing wokeness. And I talked about this a little bit in the Hawkman and the Batwoman video that I did earlier. Please watch that. Shout out to that. But, okay, this is former Black Panther actor and anti-police advocate, because they tossed that in because it's right. But that's not what I care about. Supposedly playing Tony Montana in the Scarface remake. Here's my thing. Michael B. Jordan, there's a little critical of him and his police reform. I am not anti-police. I'm not pro-police, but I am not part of this defund the police. I hate the defund the police shit. It's stupid. We know we need police. We need to reform how they operate. We need to demilitarize them, but we also need to make sure we're protecting them as well. But that is neither here nor there. My big issue with this is, why do we need to remake this? Michael B. Jordan is a really good actor. He's a sandwich guy. I mean, you can watch him make a sandwich, he'll make it compelling. He could do a really good gangster movie, I'm sure. Doesn't have to be a remake of Scarface. No. But do you really want, this is not something that makes racial justice for me. I don't want, Scarface. It's a great movie, one of the better films that's ever been made, right? But I mean, is that the type of representation that you want? A drug dealer? Like, that's the worst thing. And again, I'm sure Michael B. Jordan could do a really great drug dealer epic movie. I just don't want to see the remake Scarface. This is unnecessary. There's no need to remake Scarface. This article goes on to show Scarface itself was a remake. It actually proto woke. Look at him. Look at this. All these people screaming about wokeness. And I'm one of them, right? But screaming about the feminism. This is going back from the 30s. Howard Hughes. Godless, loveless, and heartless. He fought his brutal way up the pinnacle of power only to be challenged by a frail woman. Look at there. Even in the 30s. Feminists. But again, I don't want to see this. As my mouth shits the bed on live YouTube. I don't want to see this. I think just make a new movie. We're tired of remakes in general. I'm sure Michael B. Jordan, despite everything you think about him, which I understand. Oh, the mouse. Sorry about that. Gotta mess with the battery. I don't have time to go grab another one. Okay. I think Michael B. Jordan would be better served to just do a totally new franchise. No need to restart that. So here's some weird stuff. And this is, I want to talk about both this Spider-Woman. What's this show? Oh, the No Time to Die. Actually, I'm not going to cover that. Who cares? I want to talk about the Spider-Woman and Black Widow situation. Scarlett Johansson tossed look at me. Look at what I just did. Scarlett Johansson tossed Natasha's feminism in the Black Widow movie. Black Widow reaction says it's not a feminist film like Captain Marvel. So it's just going to be. This is 8 months ago when that happened. Granted, remember the movie was supposed to release months ago as well. So is this movie feminist or not? We have these reverse thoughts. You know, these two opposing thoughts. Oh my God, my mouse. Don't do this to me, sweetie. Not live. Not live. Hopefully I'm not doxing myself with that. I don't think I am. Alrighty. Oh my God. This is horrible. I am apologetic to anyone who's watching this stream either live or in the future that my mouse has shot the bed to such an extent that I cannot even do the stream. Okay. Back. We're back. Welcome back again. For a second, I might have to start the stream. Okay. This is, again, we have Larson, shadow focus on anti-racist Reddit and inclusive content. Sorry, I'm going to adjust this mic because I keep getting my lean on to see. Okay. So basically, you have Olivia Wilde wanting to infuse feminism in Spider-Woman. We have refuted reports on the feminism that Black Widow is going to have. And of course, Black Widow has been delayed along with the Eternals to 2021. We have some reaction saying that Black Widow is not going to be a feminist film. We have some reaction talking about how this is Scarlett Johansson's mouth herself. This is for the Time's Up movement, the Me Too movement. And then we have Olivia Wilde talking about the Spider-Woman and how she wants to infuse the superhero film genre with a female perspective. Now, I get where if you're watching and you see a lot of stuff where a lot of criticism of wokeness, a lot of it can be tiresome and sometimes hypocritical, right? Because you'll hear people say, I don't want to talk about politics, and then all they do is talk about politics. And, we're not anti-female, and then you're freaking out anytime a female or a black person is singing it. But the reason people do get upset, for those people who feel that way, who are critical of the critics, is that all we want is a good film. You don't necessarily need to infuse this film infuse this film with a female perspective. You need to infuse it with a quality story and a quality project. Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman 84, directed a film about a woman, had some feminist themes in it, but it was a good movie. Now, I'm not sure what Wonder Woman 84 is going to look like. I'm more positive on it than others. But you don't have to infuse it with a female perspective. All you need to do is make a good movie. I think what the issue is narcissism. Listen to this quote. Not only do I get to tell this story as a director, but I get to develop the story, and that is what made it so incredible for me. And I think that's the problem. We want to see Jessica Drew's story, not Olivia Wilde's story. And we know if we've paid attention to what happens in a lot of these SJW comics themselves, it's that they become self-inserts. So if this is just going to be a self-insert Spider-Woman film, if Scarlett Johansson is going to be, another feminist icon, even though it seems like there's some people who know enough to say we should probably dispute this, because this is even we got this covered saying this. So some people who know enough to know we should probably look into it. But if they're not going to address these issues, what is going to become of the MCU, and what do you think as a fan? So my thought is, I can't stop all the woke. I'm willing to pick around it. But some people are just like, nope. If I see feminist crap or if I see agenda, I'm done. And is that how you're going to think about the Marvel future? Because I don't know what it's. It doesn't look good for the MCU, the FemCU. It looks very bad. This is just a quick kind of update that a lot of people were just vindicated about the Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill situation. That both, there was a lot of reporting or rumors about them having signed back on, but then there's much more confirmed reports, and just the scoopers felt vindicated. So let's get to a positive news palate cleanser of two really heartwarming stories. Then I'll talk about the Joe Rogan situation, and then I'm going to wrap the situation. So this is a blind teen who swims for gold with a guide dog who's helping her prepare for the Tokyo Paralympics, which I assume would also delay with the regular Olympics. Paralympia Anastasia Pagonis' remarkable success story begins when she lost her vision at age 14. Granted, it's a tough age for any team, but dealing with that life-changing disability made things even more challenging. That's very sad. It took me about 8 months to kind of regroup myself, she told Today. And then when I got in my head, okay, I'm blind, now what I'm going to do in my life. Long Island native, Pagonis practically grew up in water. She had taken up competitive freestyle swimming just a few months prior to going blind. Those sentences, I'm sorry. I know this is a news report, but how she practically lived in water, but only taking up a few months before she went completely blind. I know that could be possible because it's different between swimming recreational and competitively, but it's just very, I don't know. While she excelled at the sport, even with limited vision, an abusive team atmosphere prompted her to quit. I'm sorry to hear that. Losing her sight so close on the heels of giving up her pastime she loved took a heavy emotional toll. After months of therapy, the tenacious team was ready to get back in the swim. Only swimming wasn't enough for Pagonis. She wanted to compete. Now she is facing another dilemma. No one wanted to train a blind girl. She recalled an interview with Team USA. I ended up, after about 8 months, finding an amazing coach who was willing to train me and actually put on blackout goggles to try to figure a way for me to swim. By the age of 15, Pagonis was earning a reputation as a fierce competitor, taking 2 gold medals at the World Para Swimming World Series in Australia. Look at that. Even with her newfound sense of accomplishment, Pagonis was reticent to first tap into social media. As well she should. No one should mess with social media. It's the devil. When Pagonis recalled her experience and positive outlook might be a boon to others. However, she eagerly donned the mantle of role model. I want to help people the way I needed help. Pagodas told Team USA. I started doing Instagram and social media and was still getting a bunch of messages and replies saying, wow, you really helped me get through little things, or I was getting bullied in school and you helped me through that, or you helped me know how much I was worth. That is very beautiful for this team to go through blindness and to be inspiring. So with all this craziness, you can see that there's some good left in the world. That's why I add these stories. Why I actually started this podcast, or started podcasting as a positive news show. Okay, while she didn't know what it was yet, her happy place was about to get a whole lot happier thanks to some other New York athletes. New York Islanders Puppies with a Purpose program, founded in conjunction with the nonprofit Guide Dog Foundation, was about to have its first graduate, an adorable Labrador retriever named Radar, who better to team the pup with than fellow Long Islander Pagodas. During the pandemic, Pagodas and Radar began their initial training at her home on August 19th and are ready to take on the world. I'm so lucky to have Radar. So she just got this dog like a month ago. She told the Good News Network, he gave me my independence and is my partner in crime. The independence has allowed Pagodas to take her place as resident athlete at Colorado's Olympic Paralympic Training Center, with the goal of competing in the 2021 Tokyo Games. This was a huge and scary decision for me, Pagodas tweeted. But sometimes you need to take a leap of faith, because if you don't try, you don't know. I agree with that. That's why I started the channel. Always follow your dreams. So with her dog as our co-pilot, we're guessing Pagoda's dreams might have an excellent chance of coming true. So that's a very sweet, just heartwarming story. This teen went blind. She didn't sit there. She went back to one of her passions, which is swimming. She's going to compete in the Paralympics. She's already won Paralympic Games before. She's already inspired people, helped people get through this, and more sportsmanship. More. Again, one of the other themes of this episode has been remembering that sports are not all woke ass athletes talking shit. That there's a beauty to sports. We saw Gale Sayers, the great athlete who passed this week. That's when we opened up. We're closing with these two great, normal athletes. These aren't high-paid athletes. Pagodas wasn't a high-paid athlete. She was just a teenager who lost her sight. And you see someone in this race who gives up their chance to potentially win to help an injured teen across. And this is a beautiful story as well. And every now and again you see stories like that, but they're beautiful. Let me read the headline. Teen athlete gives up race hopes to escort injured runner across the finish line, an epic display of sportsmanship. The trophy may go to the swiftest, but sometimes the first across the finish line isn't the only winner. Nowhere was this more true than a recent 5K Invitational in Shelbyville, Indiana. Hold on. Gotta hydrate or I will die. All right. With less than half a mile to go, Western Boone High School sophomore Levi LaGrange stumbled, twisting his ankle. Good Lord, I know that sucks. I was running up the little rolling hill and I rolled my ankle. I felt something go pop, he told the Indy Star. LaGrange mentioned motion for Sheridan High School senior Axel Axelman to pass him, but in that instant, the race became a secondary concern to Axelman. I was able to see he was in a lot of pain, Axelman recalled. I got closer to him and he was limping. I asked if he was all right. He said he felt like something snapped. Rather than forge ahead, an extraordinary act of sportsmanship, Alman refused to leave LaGrange behind. As soon as I saw him, I knew I had to do something, Alman said. It just seemed like the right thing to do. It mattered more than the race. I told him I wasn't going to leave. Placing an encouraging hand at his competitor's back, Alman remained with LaGrange for the remainder of the race. The two crossed the finish line within seconds of another. Alman even made sure LaGrange went first. Look how sweet that was. Goes to the rest of the story. LaGrange's mother, Becky, that's an ironic name, was a little bit more than impressed with Alman's thoughtful gesture, especially since the two had never met before. It takes a lot for an 18-year-old to give up his spot. Axel never left his side. It really speaks to Axel his character, with so much going on bad right now, it was a great moment of sportsmanship. I agree, Becky. Almond's own mother, Nikki, these names. Not that Becky and Nikki are bad names, just kind of stripperish. Which, again, we're not knocking. They raised 2 fine young men. They were not surprised by our son's spontaneous. Nikki was not surprised by our son's spontaneous show of goodwill. He's a really kind person. He's always had more concern about others than himself. After reports of the incident began to make the rounds on social media, Almond received a lot of positive feedback. While he might have enjoyed accolades for his exploits, for him the takeaway was of simple compassion and empathy. When you're standing at a crossroads or running by it, you can choose the path of self-interest, or you can go the extra mile for someone else in need. For this teen athlete, the choice was clear-cut. That's pretty much it on that story. So that's a nice, positive story. And even though I'm dead tired, I'm going to give my take on this Joe Rogan crap. Spotify employees threaten full-blown strike if Joe Rogan isn't censored. So my message to Spotify: these employees, as I go down, make $120 to $130K a year. My name is Vigilante Williamson, and I'll do it for $75. If they go on strike, I'll do it for $75. It doesn't matter what they do. I'm not going to New York, though. That's the one thing. They're in New York. I'm not moving there. So if it's not a work at home, I'm not going to New York. Nobody. But I'm not going to get into the super details. The long and short is Joe Rogan's podcast, everything has not migrated over. The employees of Spotify are upset about a lot of his content. They want to filter it, censor it, put warnings over content, block out certain things. There was some controversy about these fires. Let me see. There was a brush of misinformation on Thursday. I think it was, can't remember which Thursday. I wish they would give dates to these damn articles. But the Joe Rogan Experience published an episode with Douglas Murray, the conservative British political commentator, in which Rogan repeated a claim derived from conspiracy theory that left-wing people have been arrested for intentionally causing wildfires in Oregon. There was one person who was arrested, but as he said, I messed up on a podcast with Douglas Murray, said that people got arrested for light fires in Portland. Turns out to not be true. I was very irresponsible for not looking before I repeated. I read a story about one guy getting arrested. So there was one guy who got arrested. And he said it turned out to be true, but the other shit I read about people getting arrested, like fires in Portland, was not true. I repeated it without looking into it, and I made a really bad mistake. It won't happen again. So that was the kind of the catalyst. Not only that, there are a lot of episodes featuring conservative people that didn't make it over to Spotify. Alex Jones, being a spin artist, lied about it, said, some of these episodes are in some special whatever, top 100, whatever he made up. It was BS. And my question to Spotify is, you gave this guy $100 million. Who is involved with this organization, as I just nearly doxed myself again? Who's involved with Spotify that, if they strike, would be impactful, that didn't know who Joe Rogan was or what his content was like? How can this be a shot? How can these employees be shocked by what Joe Rogan is? This is the biggest thing they have for their company as far as Spotify, as far as making the move into podcasts. They have the biggest podcast on earth, and Joe Rogan signed on. You know, there are certain things that he may say that you may not like, or he may have guests to say that you may not like, because he's an open-minded guy. That's one of the draws of his podcast. Now you have these people willing to go on strike. Joe Rogan is about to be Last Jedi, ladies and gentlemen. He is about to be corporately destroyed. Spotify is going to destroy his podcast. Because now they're already at an impasse. And a lot of people say they should fire those people. Again, I worked for $85K, $75K. I already went up. $75K, I'll do whatever they were doing for $75K. I'll tell you I can do it. I'll do it better. Just got to do it from home because I'm not going out there. But actually, I probably would. If I really got a job off Spotify, I might. So you could fire them. You could hire new people. Like I said, you could probably replace all of them. And you could go that route. But now you have a route where you can get fired if you disagree with Joe Rogan. Is that a good working condition? You know what I'm saying? So they got themselves in a mess. I don't know how they didn't pre-clear it with whatever employees that are so upset. I'm not sure. Like, if you were going to let them run you, because if you were going to respond to their strike with immediate firing, you must have had these employees in some regard. So if they were high enough regard to where you're going to listen to them, why were they not consulted before this decision was made? And now you have all this controversy about him being censored, and now you are actually impacting the quality of the podcast that you just paid $100 million for. It's Star Wars The Last Jedi all over again. You pay a lot of money for a property, you don't understand that property, you let people who work there misguide you and destroy that property, and now that property no longer is what it once was. In a year, the Joe Rogan podcast, if this keeps up, is going to be forgotten. And that's hard to believe, hard to fathom for one of the top podcasts on earth. But if Spotify and its employees are already getting pissy and already trying to meddle, it's a matter of time. This is the beginning of the end of the Joe Rogan podcast, unfortunately. And that will be the end of this show, this very, very difficult show. We had every single technical difficulty that can happen, including Inception, audio Inception. And we had the mouse crap out on us. I may have doxed myself again. We'll see. I gotta check. But that's neither here nor there. If you liked the video, please like the video. Even if you didn't, let me know in the comments below or in the chat if you're still here. And even if you didn't, geez, I messed up my outro. I'm so tired. I'm very tired. Okay. If you like the video, please like the video. Love me or hate me, let me know in the comments below. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for